So last night, as I was relaxing and, to be truthful, half asleep on my couch, I got a phone call. It was 10:30 from the doctor at Camp Coleman. That's not a good sign, just to be clear. I was being told that David was being taken to CHOA, which is the Children's Hospital of Atlanta, Scottish Rite location, because it was believed that he had dislocated his shoulder while playing a particularly aggressive form of basketball that only 8th grade boys are capable of doing. I was told that he was in pain. I did get to speak to him, by the way. And beyond that, he was in pain. I was told that to expect that he will have to have light sedation to have his shoulder put back in place. I loaded up my bag, changed clothes, and got in my vehicle. I'm not quite sure which order of speed that all took place in, while trying to put the correct location into the GPS while not driving, because Waze won't let you do that, just to be clear. And I started calling friends on the West Coast so that they could keep me awake, because that was already 10:45 at night, and I go to bed early. Like, I wake up at 5:30 most mornings. When I got in the room, David was fairly stoic. The nurse said that she had given him Advil and Tylenol, and the doctor, who, this is the interesting part, Jewish doctor, turns out to be a Camp Coleman alum, was assessing the situation. David was then given fentanyl, which is an exciting location up his nose, and taken off for x-rays, at which point, after he came back, it was obvious the fentanyl had kicked in, because he went from being a fairly stoic child to a slightly more animated version of his stoicness. The doctor re-examined, and it looked as if the shoulder had actually popped itself back in place, which super probably painful for him, and yet also, thank God, he didn't need anything else. I got home at 4:30 this morning, so if I seem a little punchy, there's a reason.
She said fear.
What? Yes. Yeah. Thank God. I was honestly saying thank you to God multiple times on my way back home. David, of course, after the medication kicked in, was back into reading his NFL magazine, deciding which players were going to be on his fantasy football team. Don't worry, he'll kick everybody's butt. I could think of several things that, not only grateful that the doctor was a Coleman alum, which I think made David feel at ease, because they were talking about the lake and the blob and all the things. But it made me realize, like, what it would have been like had he been younger, and what it was like when he was younger. He would have been talking, scared, and not able to even handle the whole hospital thing. And truthfully, even 3 years ago, I'm not sure overnight would have been the right spot for any of them. But at this point, I saw a kid, an 8th grader, who was fully present, able to process everything. And while the situation definitely not a great one, could have been a lot worse, number one, and number two, he could have not handled it quite as well. And it got me thinking about the fact that our lives unfold in stages, that there's really no skipping or shortcuts over any or all of our struggles, even if those struggles seem like mistakes, dead ends, or wrong turns. They can in fact provide us with the ingredients that we need for the wisdom necessary for that very moment that life presents us. In the case of my son, the initial challenge and fear of being away at sleepover camp has transformed into having a sense of self-compassion, developing a slight sense of humor, which in his case is good, and helping him trust the moment and the doctors who were taking care of him. Though I will tell you that his shirt that he was wearing that had Ford logo, the nurse at the camp had to cut it off of him because she was so scared of hurting his shoulder more. He was not happy to lose his shirt. This week we read in the portion in the book of Numbers, Parshat Maseh, a recap of the wilderness journey. There were 42 stops along the way that the Israelites engaged in. In each of those stages, there were blessings, there were challenges, there were highs, and there were lows. And each of those stages deserved to be savored ever so slow, ever so wonderfully. The only message that I gleaned from this was each moment in life deserves to be unwrapped. I feel like I should be having a Forrest Gump moment. It's like a box of chocolates. You just got to unwrap it and enjoy it. But in truth, each moment sets you up for the next moment as well. In fact, the word ma'aseh means set forth. And as each stage of that journey comes to an end and we begin our next stage, we pack up the belongings and we move forward, becoming more and more aware of where we are, our individual transformations, and recognizing that we, the adventurer, are not the same person, and the place that we're in is also not the same. The Baal Shem Tov writes of those 42 stops, whatever happened to the people as a whole will happen to each individual. All the 42 journeys of the children of Israel will occur to each person between the time he is born and the time he dies. Interesting idea. I'm not sure everything happens to everybody, but I do certainly think that there are certain things that happen to all of us as part of the human experience. At the end of our lives, frequently we will look back and recognize and realize that each stage truly was significant, that we grew and we gained from all of our struggles. And only after looking back with a 2020 vision can we truly develop an understanding and an appreciation for the transformative journey our lives have taken and the blessings brought to us. Of course, it's easy to focus in at times on how each stage is difficult, on how at times it feels almost overwhelming, whatever it is. The obstacles, heartbreaking, and there are simply no words because it's just that. Rabbi Gold, in her commentary, Torah Journeys, The Inner Path to the Promised Land, writes, quote, "It is important to remember at each stage of our journey, we will encounter some obstacle or resistance, however annoyingly difficult or devastating that obstacle is. Its presence calls forth the particular power that lies hidden in us. The way in which the obstacle compels us to transform demonstrates the exact transformation our soul needs for its growth. In fact, the potential that lies buried within us often requires an appropriate challenge in order to be released and manifested." I remember when I was taking a class on play therapy, that as a therapist, it's great to design a challenge that pushes them just a little bit, the person you're working with, but not so far that they're overwhelmed by it, because it's in that sweet spot that they develop new skills and can grow. When it's too much, we frequently freeze. But that's what the journey is. It's about growing and going forward. Rabbi Nehumanya ben Hakanya, who lived in the second half of the 1st century, wrote a special prayer involving the 42 words of the 42 stops and incorporated the divine name into each of them. And he wrote, "Ana b'koach gedulat yamincha tizir Torah." Please, with the strength of your right hand, untie our tangles. Rabbi Hakanya asks God to come forward and deal with the tangles that can keep us stuck in those same spots, stuck repeating those same patterns, stuck where the scenery looks the same, but the people in it are slightly different on our life's journey. Yet as we navigate all of our obstacles and understand them within the context of that journey, sometimes I believe it's the stuckness that can help us grow as we ourselves will navigate and untangle life's challenges presented to us. It's the ability to overcome that insurmountable resistance or difficulties that allow the challenge we face to actually contribute into our soul's growth. In modern psychology, I'm thinking about post-traumatic growth, not post-traumatic stress disorder, but actually post-traumatic growth or positive psychology, looking at those things that challenge us, which can compel us forward. Recognizing that the obstacles at various points in our journey can teach us to manage pain. They can teach us to manage despair. They can teach us to recognize that it will not always go our way. That as we move forward and face these challenges, they may be scary, but maybe we have tools inside of us and maybe we can overcome them. I'm not saying that my son's experience in the hospital last night was easy. I'm not telling you that my soul was not with my stomach nor my heart beating 10,000 beats a second as I was driving up 75. He was fine, and I didn't need to have a panic moment in my car, turns out. I met my son in the hospital room and I realized he's not the same person he was a year ago. He's no longer the baby I remember. He's moving on to yet another stage. As we go and grow in our lives, we too must learn to trust the journey itself. Each stage bringing its own gift, even when wrapped in difficulty or fear. The wilderness wanderings of our ancestors remind us that sometimes we must travel through uncertain terrain to reach that promised land. But every step along the way, the detours even, those painful stops, those seemingly unbearable obstacles that can weigh us down, can serve a purpose in shaping us. And again, when we're experiencing it, we may not even be able to see it, say it, or acknowledge it, and that's fine and normal too. Last night, while I was watching David handle his injury with a newfound maturity, I witnessed not just his growth, but was reminded of my capacity to find inner peace, which took me a moment, in the midst of parental terror. The phone call that sent my heart racing became a recognition that we're all exactly where we need to be on our journey, ready to face whatever challenge we're called forth to do. May we have the wisdom to see each stage of our life as sacred, each obstacle as an invitation to discover strength we didn't even know we possessed, and each ending as the beginning of something new. May we remember as we set forth from this place that the journey is itself an important part. The journey may in fact be the important part. With all of its stops along the way, may the journey be a blessing. Shabbat Shalom.